Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Since We Last Talked, my new podcast, where we just talk about life in the middle of everything, life in the middle of our faith and the trials and tribulations that we go through, and life just in the middle of life and figuring everything out as we go. This first episode is going to be about getting to know me a little bit more on a deeper level. I asked you guys over on my Instagram to give me questions, personal questions, things that you want to know about me in general or me and my faith and whatnot, whatever you have. So I have the questions here pulled up and we're going to get straight into that. If you want to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, would be much appreciated, but it is not mandatory. Let's get straight into this after I take a sip of water. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the first question we are going to answer is my testimony. A bunch of people asked what my testimony was, how I came into my faith and whatnot. So that's the first thing we're going to be talking about. It's not really that crazy of a story. It's kind of long-winded, but I will try to put as much detail in there as possible. So basically, growing up, I never really believed in God, right? My parents, when I was growing up, gave me the free will to believe in whatever I want. God wasn't like a super taboo thing in my childhood, but it just wasn't something that was talked about. I probably went to church 2 times in my childhood, teen years, whatever it was. And yeah, it just wasn't something talked about, I was just kind of born into a house where the mindset was, to put everything on your back, get a job, make sure you pay your bills, and, live your life and get by that way type of thing. So fast forward up into my 18 to 20-year-old years till now, because I'm only 23. So fast forward to that, kind of when COVID hit, 2020, I started making music, right? I wanted to do something creative. I started fooling around on music with my friends, and then we showed my dad, and my dad was super supportive about it. And the songs probably were horrible at the time, but he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is super awesome. Like you want to make music? Is this something you want to try to do? You want to try to chase?" And I was like, "Yeah." So then he bought me my starter equipment to start music, and it all grew from there. At this point, I didn't have a faith in God. Wasn't something I thought about. But yeah. So then I started music, and super awesome endeavor. I love making music. It's a wonderful hobby now. I will talk about that later in the podcast. But I loved making music. It was awesome, and it started to grow into something amazing, and I started to feel purpose and fulfillment from it. So it became all that much better. And as time went on in my music career, and it started to grow, and I started to drop little albums here and there, and I had a little hype in the area for the things that I was doing, because it was so out there. No one really did this for my area. And when I say had a little buzz, I just mean people knew about it. I wasn't there. There was nothing crazy going on for my life. I want to get that straight. But yeah, so then that went on. And as that went on, I started to kind of, gain a faith system, a structured kind of faith system in the universe. I was a spiritual dude. I had like crystals that are behind the camera right now. Which don't mean anything really to me now, but at the time they did. And I got super into the universe and spiritual stuff and, astrology signs, blah, 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 whatever. So then I kind of had a faith foundation on that stuff. As I was doing music, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the universe is looking out for me. The universe wants me to do this, super into manifestation and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm really going to make this happen. And as music slowly developed and got bigger, and I started doing shows and stuff like that, I started to notice like a shift in my attitude towards everything. And I realized that a lot of my purpose and a lot of my views and values of myself were based on, how good I was doing in my career wise, music wise. And things started to feel a little less unfulfilling and unmeaningful in my life. I had done shows where, I stage dove into a crowd and sold out my first show at a small venue. It was like, I don't know, 200 people, give or take, but it felt like 500 at the time in this small venue, and things were super sick. There was a little bit of buzz. And it seemed like from the outside things were going really good. But in my mind, I was really unfulfilled. I wasn't getting any purpose from it. And it just kind of left me in this loop of feeling empty. So then, fast forward a little bit during that, I stopped making music, and took a break from everything for a little while. Stopped making music, got off of social medias for a little bit. And I, kind of underwent this growth period in my life of trying to pick up the pieces again and figure out what my purpose and fulfillment came from in this life. And slowly over time, I was doing that. And then, I think it was like a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years that I took off of music before I was really doing anything again. And I always had, the dreams and passion to create and do something on social media and stuff like that. So then, fast forward, me and my brother get really into the gym, right? We get really into the gym, and it's kind of when the fitness influencing and all this stuff was booming, right? So then we were like, dude, we could just record this in the gym and just hop on this trend, hop on this wave. So then we did, and we went super, super hard at it. Like, I mean, kind of unhealthily hard. Like, I was barely getting any sleep because I was staying up to edit videos. We were getting back from the gym at like 10 o'clock at night because of our work schedules and stuff like this. And it just really wasn't healthy. But, I kind of had that fire again. And so that went on for, I don't know, probably like a year. Excuse me. So like I said, that went on for, I don't know, probably like a year, and some change. And then the same thing happened again. Even though it was growing, even though it was doing well, I started to feel unfulfilled from it again. And I felt like my purpose was gone, and I was left in the same spot. And I didn't know why. So then the same thing happened. Me and my brother stopped making social media, kept going to the gym, still do. Big advocate for, physical activity and getting out and being active in your life. But we stopped doing the social media again, and I was left kind of in the same rut, with no purpose, no fulfillment. Didn't know why I was, put here on earth. And I think it was another year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, probably a year and some change, that I didn't do anything on social media again. But during this time in this growth period, I was like, you know what? Let me give this God thing a try. So I did. I went and bought my first Bible. And I just went full gung-ho at that, and bought my first Bible, started watching a bunch of videos on faith and different influencers and stuff like that, and got really, really into it at first, almost too into it. And I was, I was kind of trying to tell everybody about it way too early before I had any knowledge of anything, and I really, really did not set a good example for me getting into faith and, what people around me probably thought about it during the time because of, just the things I was saying, I was being like wild about it. I don't really even know how to explain that per se, but I just wasn't being a good example for the faith. But now I had this faith in God, the universe thing and all that stuff was out the door. And I was like, let me take up this path. And for the first 2 years of my faith, really wasn't anything special. I kind of just had a Bible. I read it, went hard for 1 to 2 months, and was like, I'm not going to sin anymore, blah, blah, blah. Went about it all wrong. And so I was very lukewarm in the beginning, didn't super take it seriously. But I knew I just had that faith in God, right? So then this happens. And then shortly after, I start making content again. I'm like, you know what? Let me try making content again. Let me do this. And give it another try. So then I start making content again. And I start making, personal development content. Personal development, talking about things just in my life that I've been through and stuff like that. And it started to go well. It was going well. It was growing and it felt good. But again, I was still kind of feeling unfulfilled, right? And at this point, my faith is still kind of shaky. I've been super distant from God. I'm just claiming that I'm a Christian. I believe in God, but I'm not really following God at this point in my life. And I was like, the one day, I have it in my journal written over there somewhere. But the one day I'm sitting at my desk and I'm editing a video and I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling like I'm on autopilot mode. I'm just doing this for views. My value is rooted in how good I'm doing on all this stuff still, even with a faith in God. I'm sitting at my desk editing a video and I literally just stop. And, previously before this moment that I'm about to talk about, I had made a couple videos about God, right? Talking about my faith, sharing a verse here and there. And those were the videos that did pretty well. And so I'm sitting at my desk and I kind of, I just bow my head. I look up at my cross that I have right above my desk and I just kind of start praying to God. And I'm like, God, I've been so distant from you. And I feel like I deliberately leave you out of my content because I guess I feel like it's a taboo subject. I don't really want to talk about it in this nature, but you've shown me signs through my content, through the things that I share and in my real life when I talk about you and I talk about my faith. There's something there. There's a fulfillment. There's a purpose there. And I was like, if you want me to fully take up this cross and fully just follow you, and you want me to do this, and you want me to, kind of talk about you and make my content for you, please just give me a sign. And for this next week, I am going to only make faith content, talking about my faith, and, kind of the videos that you guys see now. They were a little bit different earlier if you scroll back to my early days, but I was like, I'll dedicate this whole week to you, only making faith content, really spending time with you, building my relationship with you. But you, God, just have to let me know that this is what you want me to do. Show me a sign. I don't know, make the videos do good. Show me a sign in my real life that this is what you want me to do. And this is what you've been, nudging me to do this whole time. And so I do that. And the first week of faith content, everything kind of took off. No, I didn't hit like 1 million views in one day. And things didn't just take off and it was my full-time career overnight. No, but it showed me so much more than I've ever seen before when, I fully gave myself to God. And from there on, I think it was, what was it? Was it March last year? I think it was March last year or maybe this year. I don't know. No, it was definitely March last year. But I started doing that. And from there on out, I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to dedicate my life to the Lord. I'm going to dedicate the things that I do and want to do for my life towards the Lord, and just put him first in front of all of it. And, that's kind of what you guys have seen ever since. And it's turned into what it's turned into now. So I guess my whole testimony was just constantly seeking and not feeling the purpose and fulfillment out of life from anything. And I tried so many things, and so many of those things that should have given me validation during that time that I was doing good and whatever. Excuse me. And they just didn't. So then, yeah, when I really dedicated my whole life towards God and made him first in everything, things just started to look up. And it's not like my whole life got easier, and it's not like everything flooded in and blessings flooded, everywhere in my life, but it finally gave me that fulfillment and purpose that even when things were going bad or when things were going really good, God was my foundation and my purpose and my fulfillment and the reason I do what I do and the reason I wake up every day, and gave me that sense of purpose. And then everything else that I talk about in my videos and faith-wise grew from there. It's been a short period of time where I've really followed God. Like I said, it's been about a 4-year thing of, me believing in God, yes, but it's honestly only been like a 2-year period where I've really been like, okay, I'm going to follow God. And yeah, and it's not like my whole life got better. Things got harder. But it's been the most fulfilling and purposeful and meaningful thing to my life. So yeah, that was very, very long-winded, but I had to give you guys the whole backstory, and I guess that's the whole point of a podcast. So that's what I ended up doing, and that's my testimony. And I know it's not anything crazy like some people have, but yeah, it was kind of a chase of purpose and fulfillment, and I got so much more. So that's my testimony. Moving on to the next questions. Let me just look through these ones here. I have them all screenshotted. There was a couple that I knew I wanted to answer. And here they are. Couple questions in this one question. Is what you're doing online your career? Yes and no. Yes and no in the way of I want it to be my career, yes. But I still do work a full-time job. I work a full-time job right now, and I do all this stuff as also kind of another full-time job is the way I look at it, and I look at it as my career. And then I also do a bunch of work for my buddy Connor, who lives in Miami, which I'm hoping to be my full-time by this year. And by the way we've talked, and by the faith that I have in him and him being a hard worker, I believe we're going to make it happen. So no, if you're to answer your question, I want it to be my full-time career and what I do and what all my time goes towards. But right now I still have a normal job. I'm still a normal dude, normal full-time job. I do all this stuff with all my other free time. And then on the side right now, I work for my buddy Connor, and hopefully by the end of this year, that is my full-time thing. And then the social media and everything you guys are seeing right now is kind of my secondary full-time thing, and I have much more time to put towards that whilst also working for him. And that's exactly how I want it to be. Because if I were to try to make social media my full-time career, I don't think I could do it. Because, well, actually, I'll answer that next part in the next part of this question, because it kind of goes into it. But, yeah. So that being said, this isn't my full-time thing right now. I have a multitude of things, but I do want it to be part of my career. Yes. How did God lead you to start making your content? I kind of just talked about that in my testimony. I I didn't feel anything from anything I was doing on the social media aspect. And, I had that prayer that I just talked about. And from there on out, he showed me, this is what I want you to do. And obviously everything has grown tenfold, and we are where we are now, very blessed, very grateful. And he showed me that this is what I want you to do. And this is what I want you to talk about. So I listened, and it was the best decision possible. And then the final question, which is really why I picked this question and I wanted to answer it, is how did you know when it came from God versus yourself, and do the numbers ever get to you? How did I know it came from God and not myself? Because like I just kind of talked about, not to sound like a broken record, but, I prayed about it. I prayed to God about everything I was doing. And obviously stuff started working. So that's how I knew that God wanted me to base everything I was doing for him, and for his kingdom, and help out. And then how do I know when my videos come from God and not just me? Sometimes they do just come from me. Sometimes it's just things that I genuinely want to talk about, or I've been struggling with. But the way I go about making my videos is, it's kind of a week-to-week basis. And if God is laying stuff on my heart week to week, I write it down, and that's what I go ahead and I make videos off of. But if God doesn't give me anything and isn't calling me to make any videos, or, isn't pushing me to talk about a certain thing, I just won't post. I won't make videos. Kind of over the past week as I'm recording this, you guys aren't going to see this exactly when I record this, but as I'm recording this, I haven't really felt called to make videos. I've been taking a little bit more days off, not posting as much. And when I don't post, I really don't go on social media. Funny enough, I don't go on social media as much as people might think, seeing, where everything's at. But if I just don't feel called to make videos from God, or he's not laying stuff on my heart to talk about, I just won't make videos. I don't go and force myself to make videos like I used to. I won't try to script something up with AI or a script or something like I used to. Not necessarily fully for the God content, but just other things that I was doing in general. And I won't just try to force it. So that's kind of how I gauge if it's coming from God or if it's not. Or, if I need to, I'll go to the Bible or search up stuff on the internet and relate it to the Bible, and, see if it's just a worldly thought or if it's from God. And the final part of that question is, do the numbers ever get to you? Yes, of course the numbers get to me. I've taken a couple times, I've taken a week off from making content just purely out of the numbers getting to me, and me thinking, me just getting too rooted in the value of views and numbers going up or going down, and basing my importance and my value from that. I get caught up in that sometimes, and I've had to take weeks off of social media to get back with God and ground myself and remind myself that, even if this all crumbled, I have God, and that is the most important part of all of this. I've even told God, I've had prayers where I tell God, you could take this all away right now. I feel like I've helped enough people, and you could take this all away right now because I have you, and you are the most important part. And obviously he hasn't. So I believe this is the path he still wants me to go on. So I move forward, and then I keep doing so. But yeah, so the numbers have definitely gotten to me before. And it's a very fine line. And I think when people want to do social media and make content on the gospel, I think it's a beautiful thing to share it. And it creates an even bigger community and influences more people to, come to Christ, which is a beautiful thing. But it walks a fine line of doing it for yourself and doing it purely out of views and virality and to make an income off of it. And then it comes down to doing it out of the love of God, and regardless of whatever the outcome of the social media aspect is, you still do it out of spreading the word of God because you love to and you want to for his kingdom. So yes, the views have gotten to me before. Apologies for the abrupt cut in the video, my camera only records 30 minutes at a time, so I had to restart the camera, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. But moving on to other questions here. Excuse me, let me take a sip of my water. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. What do I want to answer right now? I'm sorry I didn't have this a little bit more planned, but I kind of just wanted to answer, from my heart, or what I feel like God wants me to answer. And I didn't want to just kind of script it all out and, have my answers right away. We have a question here. What's something that deeply affected you in your childhood and carried on into adulthood? I think what I talked about previously before in the beginning of this podcast, during my testimony kind of segment, is kind of carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and feeling as though, it's up to me to constantly make something happen, and that kind of gets in the way of my trust in God sometimes. But honestly, more importantly, now that just kind of popped in my mind is, I think love and my hardships and knowing how to love and knowing how to receive love, carried a lot into my adulthood and from my childhood, because I haven't talked about it much. Maybe I'll talk about it more in depth in a different podcast, but my childhood wasn't awesome. By no means was it the worst of the worst. I had food in my mouth, I had a place to sleep, but when it came to dynamic and stuff going on in the house, there was a lot of fighting. I've made a video about this before on my Instagram. There was a lot of fighting. I felt a lot of abandonment, and I did not, I didn't have a good, example of love in my childhood. I didn't feel like I had a good example of that. I didn't really know how it worked. And it definitely carried on into now, because it's something I have to constantly navigate when it comes to people and people connections, friendships and relationships and stuff like that. I've messed up a lot of good friendships and a lot of good relationships because of that, and just not knowing how to nurture them, how to treat them. And there's kind of this blockade in my life when it comes to that, and I'm really trying to navigate it, because I hate losing people, man. I hate losing people out of my life, and it's a really, really hard thing to forgive myself for a lot of times when it does happen. But yeah, I don't know how to accept love. It's really, really hard for me to accept love. I've had many people in my life that have definitely loved me, truly, treated me well, and it was always such a hard thing for me to accept and to understand, and to not feel weird or cringed out by it. And then that also just leads into giving love, and treating people with love, because when I can't accept it, and I don't allow myself to accept it, I can't fully feel it. It makes it that much harder for me to go out of my way and do things for other people out of love and stuff like that. So that's something I've really been trying to work with God on, and trying to navigate and try to treat people better. Not like I'm some terrible, bad human being, but there's just been hiccups. And like I've said, I've lost people because of it. So it's something that I'm really trying to work on and be a little bit more selfless in my life, and not so much about me and closed off per se, and not allowing people in, and not allowing people to love me, and allowing good people around me because of those things that I dealt with in my childhood. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that has carried on over, is just bad examples of love in my childhood, and now that I'm an adult, having to navigate it on my own and figure out what the dynamic is and what's okay, what's not okay, what's actually love, and what's, destroying myself for someone else, and or vice versa. So that's what I would say. We have the next question I have coming in here is, what's the hardest thing you've had to heal from since coming to Christ? And that's a personal one for sure, 100%. But I would probably say the hardest thing I've had to heal from in general is going back to kind of what I just talked about is losing people. That's probably been the hardest thing I've had to deal with in my walk with Christ, is losing people. Because it's such a hard thing to navigate, because when you lose somebody, there's so much growth and so much things that happens after it and that goes into it, that you have to heal from. And there's so many personal things, like in my mind, if sometimes it feels so separate from God, like it's hard. There's so many thoughts that run through your mind, right? Like, was this from God? Did this happen for a reason? Did this happen for a reason? Are me and this person better off not together? Did this relationship come to an end at the perfect time because the Lord wanted it this way? And I trust that the Lord has me exactly where he wants me, but that's a super confusing thought when that happens. Did it come from the Lord, or was it just from me messing up so many times and me using my free will for the wrong things, that led me to this moment and to, lose out on something that was beautiful. So that's been a really hard thing to deal with in my faith. Because then obviously, when you lose people, there's, like I said, there's so many emotions that run through it, the grief of losing somebody. And then during the grief, you kind of get, that egotistical, pepped up attitude, like, this is what God wanted. I would never be here if they were still here. I couldn't get here if they were still here. That ego happens. And then you kind of get over that ego. And then you go back into trying to forgive yourself, trying to forgive yourself for where you messed up. Because let's be honest, nobody's perfect. Everybody messes up. And in every relationship ending, there's always two ends of the story. And I think on both sides, there always could be more that could have been done. You know what I mean? There's always more that could have been done. So trying to give yourself that grace when it comes to that, and accepting God's grace when it comes to that, is a difficult thing. And then, just the growth period and the grief. And sometimes it takes a really long time when it was an amazing thing. And, I feel like it's cliche, but you never really know how much you love something until it was gone. And then when it's gone, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I just lost such a good thing. And you immediately blame it on yourself. At least I do. And then, you got to forgive yourself and accept God's forgiveness when it comes to all that. So that's been a really rocky road and a super hard thing to navigate in my faith, because sometimes I separated too much from my faith. And, apologies if you can hear my dog barking in the background. But, that's probably been one of the hardest things to navigate, is losing people in my life, because I've lost a lot of them. And I can't sit here anymore and completely blame it on myself, but, I take accountability for the things that I did wrong 100%. And God has really, really helped me do that and do so. So losing people, hardest thing to deal with for me and my faith. Trying to find another one. Who/what was the biggest influence on your path to Christ? Let's think about that for a minute. I could say influence, like some influencers that talk on the internet that have really helped with my experience with Christ, but I feel like I came into Christ on my own. And then through that, my brother was like, okay, I'm going to take up this cross and try this out. My brother's been doing really well on his walk with God. My dad opened up his heart to Christ. my grandma, and all sorts of things. So I kind of came into Christ alone. So, I guess there hasn't been a super big influence that helped me in the beginning, per se. And I don't say that in any type of bad way. But like influencers over the internet that have helped me, involuntarily by like just watching their videos and stuff like that has been, Johnny Chang, which I know is a super controversial one. Some people really don't like him. Some people really love him, whatever. I'm not here to make opinions about him, but he really did help me on my walk with Christ, and I really like his points and his views and the way he talks about things. I like Bryce Crawford. Everybody knows who Bryce Crawford is, probably the biggest guy in the space. I really like Bryce Crawford and the way he teaches, and him just being a young dude. I think he might literally be younger than me or the same age. I don't know. But just seeing someone there so strong in their faith, lets me know that I can be strong in my faith now. And it's not something that I have to wait till I'm 50 and did this path for such a long time to, have a strong faith and kind of be quote unquote hard on myself when it comes to being obedient to God now in my life. And then this is honestly more so recent times, but Pastor Philip Mitchell, I believe it is. I think I always call him Philip Michael, but I think it's Philip Mitchell. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, obviously, but super, super helpful. I would say he's probably number one on my list for who has helped me. The way he teaches, the way he preaches, and how he's so raw about everything. He puts everything so raw and doesn't sugarcoat it. Has really helped me on my walk and taught me a lot. So those are kind of the top three influencers that have helped me on my path to Christ. And then obviously just talking to you guys, I get so many DMs a day, and from an outside point of view, it looks like, people are coming to me for my help sometimes, but I don't think people realize how much it helps me when I'm helping other people, because I struggle with the same things everybody else does too. So you guys too have been a super big influence in my walk with Christ. Here's another lighthearted question, because I feel like we've been talking about super deep things. You into any anime? No, I don't really watch anime. I don't have any problem with it. It just never intrigued me. I don't watch any anime. I really don't do anything other than I honestly live like such a boring life, and I'm really closed off, and that is another thing I'm trying to work on. But no, I kind of just don't do anything. Not to, crap on myself, but I kind of just go to work, I come home, and I do social media stuff, and I do stuff like this, and or work on other things, and just kind of stay in the house. I'm a real big homebody. I love going out to restaurants. I love going out to eat with my friends and my family and stuff like that. That's probably one of my biggest things I love to do. But when it comes to like going out, or going to bars or parties or something like that, I don't indulge. But like I said, that is something I like to work on in my life, and just try to go out and experience life a little bit more, because I don't think you need to go out and go to the bar to do anything fun. It's just, kind of the area that I live in. There's far and few between, and we kind of only get like, oh my gosh, excuse me. We kind of only get a couple months out of the year of nice weather to get out. So, yeah. Oh, this is another big one that I really wanted to answer. How do you manage to preach / lead something you struggle about / are not living? That's a great question. That's honestly a great question. And the person who asked this question, I won't say the name, because I'm trying not to say the name of anybody, because I really, I don't know if people want me to, so I just won't say anyone's name. But if you're watching this and you asked this question, I appreciate, because this guy's always just either teaching me something about my faith or making me really think about something. But it's a beautiful question. And, I guess just because I see and I know that it's helping people. I don't think me struggling with something, or me, not being able to live something and struggling to live something, makes it so I can't share it, or makes it so I shouldn't share it until I get it all under control and perfect. We're always going to struggle with things of that nature. And, you know, I think it helps more than people realize. And I do walk a fine line of talking about the things that I do, because I know that it sometimes, if I don't, throw warnings in there, in videos sometimes, or really get in depth about it, that sometimes it could come off as me preaching God's grace too much a little bit. And maybe it can make some people think, like, have a little bit too much grace on their sin type of thing. So I walk a fine line with that, and I try not to, preach sin and make it seem like sin is fine. But I don't think me struggling with something should stop me from talking about it. And I think it's a lot of things that other Christian, quote unquote, influencers, don't do. And that's not shade at anybody, but I feel like a lot of these people that we know about, or Christian influencers in general, are more so teaching, and which I think is a beautiful thing, right? I think it's a beautiful thing. But I just don't ever hear people talk about their struggles and what they're going through and the things they fell into a lot. And then it kind of makes it, for me sometimes, which is my own fault, brings comparison into play. And it's like, this person's so deep in their faith and so good with their faith in God, and I'm still struggling over here. So I kind of wanted to be a platform that showed, you can have a burning desire for your faith in God and really still truly love God while you're still struggling with things and still trying to be a human. You know what I mean? And I just haven't seen many people preach it and talk about it and be so open about it. And that is not getting on my high horse or putting my ego above anything at all. But it's just something I don't feel like people talk about much. And I think it helps a ton when people can relate and go through and know that they're not alone going through the same things, and know that they're not doing something wrong or have a bad faith in God because they're going through things. So that's kind of why I don't stop myself from talking about something or teaching something or preaching something that I'm struggling with or struggling to live out. So hopefully that answers your question to the best of my abilities. Has anyone helped you turn back to God when you feel like you've strayed from his path? You guys. I think you guys have been the biggest part of that. And I personally don't reach out enough. I have so many of you, which I'm so blessed and grateful for, that, tell me, thank you so much for helping me all the time. But just so you know, my DMs are open too. And you can come text me if you're struggling. And we love you and want to make sure you're good. Which I don't use. I don't take up those offers enough. I think I shelter things a little too much, and I need to be a little bit more open personally and not just post videos about it. But you guys really help me get back to my faith in God. And when I'm really, really distant, I'm reminded of you guys and reminded of kind of what this is all for the kingdom and for God. And it just brings me back to the Lord. And, I can't sit here dormant. I can't just be distant and not to completely tie my faith into my social media and what I do, but it's like, it helps keep me accountable, because, I do think about that, and I'm just like, I've been so distant from God. I've been so off the rails with sin and stuff like that. And I'm just like, and, God gave me this platform to help all you guys, or to be able to help. And, I can't be living the way I've been living. So I'd say you guys really, really help me in staying obedient and staying on the path of God and coming back when I have been distant. Another question: how do you deal? Actually, I'm gonna try to find a different question and then come back to that one. Um, Here's another one, which kind of goes off the last question we just talked about. Have you had moments where you felt further from God than you should be? Yes, all the time. I maybe there's this maybe there's this I don't know image around Christian influencers or people who talk about God on the internet, that we don't struggle as well. And obviously, going back to that other question I answered, that's why I'm so open about my struggles. But yes, there has been so many times during this part of my life and other parts of my life where I've been severely distant from God and went off the rails and been distant and then just fell into sin and kept going with it and then felt so shameful and so guilty and felt like I couldn't come back to God because I racked up my sin points and I can't come back. So I'm human like the rest of you guys. And like I said, you guys helped me come back. And as far as I ever get from God, I will never relinquish my faith, and He will always be the most important thing in my life. Um, mm, Ooh, I like this question. What did you see in the world before devoting to Christ, and how is it different after finding Christ? What did I see in the world before Christ? I didn't see anything. And to explain that a little bit further is, like sin and lust and drinking and getting messed up and you know, things of that nature of the world. Obviously, I'm talking about the bad things. I think there is many good things in this world as well. Um, but I didn't see any of it. And I didn't see any of it as bad. I just found it as a means to life and, how you lived your life and what you did on a day-to-day basis. But after finding Christ and, devoting my life to Christ, that's when I really started to see things for how they were and how they ruin your life and how they affect your life, and how they affect your relationship with Christ. And I just kind of saw it's opened up my eyes to the evilness of the world, of course, but I don't want to just be a doomsday guy and talk about the bad things. It's opened up my eyes to how beautiful things are in the world sometimes. I I don't think I think we should be living for Christ and not the world, yes. But when we say that, I don't think that means that the world is a completely bad thing. There is so much evil and so much spiritual warfare going on in the world, 100%. But there still is beautiful parts of this world and so many beautiful things to be grateful for that God has, put into this world. So, yeah, to answer your question, before Christ, I didn't see anything in the world. I was blind, blind towards everything, and I didn't see all of these things as bad, and I didn't struggle with anything because I didn't feel like I had to. And then after coming into Christ, I started to truly see the evil things in the world and the things that I was doing that affected my life that I needed to remove myself from and or start fighting with Christ. Um, and I've also opened up my eyes to see so many other beautiful things in the world as well. This is definitely going to be a longer podcast than I thought. I didn't think this podcast was going to be this long because I still have a whole list of other things that I want to talk about, and maybe it'll just make it into the next episode because I don't want to make this too long. But yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I get to as many questions as I can. Um, mm, Sorry about this. Just trying to find something. How can you overcome wanting to be loved but find yourself seeking people after people? This is a huge thing I feel like I've been going through right now, especially in my walk with Christ. And seeking validation and seeking that feeling of love through other people and through other things. I feel like I've been finding myself doing a lot, because right now I have been in kind of a dormant season of my life. Things have really slowed down, not in a bad way. I think Christ just saw that I needed rest, and I did pray for rest, because I felt like things were really hectic for a while, and I was really, really stressed out. But you know, I realized, for me personally, when I find myself seeking for love and seeking after people, whether it's through a friendship or, where the state of the world is, going on dating apps and trying to find another relationship, and truly trying to chase after something. Because I also feel like, not to sound like a boomer, or not to sound like I also don't struggle with it, but I feel like in today's age, especially in our generation, if you're anywhere towards my age, relationships and idolizing relationships has really, really become a big thing. A big thing that we root ourselves in. And, if we're single, we take it as a bad thing. And in return, like you said, we start seeking that feeling, that validation, that comfort, that love from other people, and it causes us to chase after other people, and we take our eyes off of the Lord. And I recently have come to the discovery, because I've been in a bad spot of chasing that for a while, of chasing a relationship, chasing that validation and love through other people. I came to the point and realized, that it literally isn't doing anything for me. I sat back and I realized, and I humbled myself, and I just, I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing chasing all these things? I don't think relationships are inherently bad. So I'll put that out there before I say anything I'm saying. But it also says somewhere in the Bible, not exactly what verse, and I'm definitely paraphrasing, but it says something in the Bible about, if you're single, if you're in a single season of your life, don't try to go out and try to immediately abolish that and find a relationship. You should spend your single season growing your relationship with God first and foremost. But you should also work on yourself. Like, having all your time to yourself is a beautiful thing. You have so much time to be able to build yourself up and strengthen your relationship with Christ in so many ways that you wouldn't be able to do with another person. Hopefully you would, because, hopefully you'd find someone who would allow you to do that. But understand that everything that you're seeking through chasing people, you can get from God, and you will get from God. But you just need to center your attention on Him, because everything you're chasing through other people, and that feeling that you're chasing through other people, God is trying to give to you, but you don't see it because you think it only happens in the physical and when you get it from another person, right? So just understanding that everything you're chasing right now can come from God. Focus on Him and a relationship, and what is meant for you, He will give you at the end of that. And yeah, just not chasing after things of that nature, in that regard, because it's something I've really, really struggled with. And then the question that I was going to answer earlier that I didn't answer, I wanted to say now, because I have it written down on my thing of topics that I wanted to talk about in this podcast. How do you deal with the crippling spiritual warfare that suddenly hits at night, or is that just me? And this is something that I wanted to talk about, that I wrote down, is, the spiritual warfare that's going on in the world right now. It is something that hits me. It is something. It's not like every single night it keeps me up at night. I won't lie about that. I'm not constantly fixated on it. But with the state of the world and what is going on right now, wars and turmoil, and I'm not going to get super political. I am the least political person ever. So hopefully some of you guys can respect that. But it's not so good right now. There is a lot of spiritual warfare going on in the world. There is so much evil happening. There is so much destruction happening. And I'm not a doomsday person at all. And I don't even necessarily like talking about end times. But I have been seeing a lot of people talking about that and talking about Revelations. And, we're in the end times. We're living the last 2 pages of Revelations in the Bible and stuff like that. And I never want to fearmonger, which is why I don't talk about it. But I do think it is, for the people that are talking about it, I think it's important because it wakes everybody up to where we are at, and people, who haven't given their life to Christ, wouldn't be a bad time right now. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we're in not an awesome state of the world, and it breaks my heart. And my prayers go out to everything, and it's something that I think we should all be praying for more often, right? I don't think we should live our lives in constantly thinking about end times and constantly be living in fear, and stuff like that, because, people who are truly following Christ, it should be a good thing because, it'll be our time to reunite with the Lord, and he's going to come down, and everything that entails with that you guys have heard about. I'm not super educated. That's why I didn't want to go super in depth about it and get something wrong. But, yeah, I think it's something that we should think about more, but not completely scare ourselves to death, over it. So, yeah, just keep the world in your prayers. There's too much going on. There's a lot going on, a lot of evil going on, and it's something that we should be should notice. It's something that we should notice, and it's something that we should talk about more. But it's not something that should shell us off and make us live in fear. So yeah, that's my take on that whole spiritual warfare and where the world is right now. It's a really scary time. And yeah, we just need to pray to God, and we need to give thanks to God, and we need to just be more open about it and let people know. And it could bring people to God. It could take people away from God, but it's important to be educated on it. But obviously not to live in fear about it. So I have a couple other things here. That's all the questions that I'm going to answer. Some of them were duplicates, so hopefully I got to everybody's question. And if I didn't, I do apologize. I'm probably going to be doing a 5 to 10 question segment every single time on every podcast, either at the beginning or the end. So you guys will have another chance to submit your questions again. But here are some of the things that I wrote down that I kind of wanted to just mention in this podcast and talk about for the first episode. And some things that I've also been going to, and I just kind of wanted to go into a little bit more of a life update and where I am right now and how I feel right now, and some of the things that I've personally been going through. And to give a life update exactly in my physical situation, I'm blessed. I'm grateful for where I'm at right now in my life. Is something that I've always strived to get to. And before God, I always felt unobtainable, right? But yeah, physically, what I got going on with the social media going on, I have a good job, and stuff like that. I'm in a blessed situation, but some things I have been struggling with. I've been struggling on my battle with lust a little bit. I won't go super in depth about that because I believe it, deserves its own segment. And I just don't think we have enough time in this podcast to do so. But I'll talk about that in a different one. I've been struggling with lust a little bit more so than I would like. And I'm trying to kind of rewire my brain with God and how I go about all that stuff and my struggle. And yeah, other than that, my life has just been really kind of slow lately. It's been slow. I have this new endeavor that I've thought of because life has been slow, and I've had a lot of time to think, and I've had a lot of time to talk to God. And cool ideas like this have come up. So yeah, it's been really slow and a restful season in my life. I don't feel like God is really, really laying anything my heart, like a ton on my heart to talk about. So yeah, I think God has put me in a season to focus on myself and to slow down a little bit and to learn more and gain more knowledge, and then come back, full force to how I was. But He's put me in a good season, and I struggle with rest sometimes, restful seasons, because sometimes I find myself basing my importance and my value off of how much I get done and how much I work on things. And that's, I just know is not the case. So yeah, that's where my life is at right now. Struggling with some things, but we're in a restful season. We're in a reset season. And I believe on the other side of this is great things to come. And I'm letting God guide my feet, and I'm just taking action. So that's where I'm at in my life. But another thing I've learned through this season of my life is something I also been struggling with. And that is learning that it's okay to be, I'm reading off my notes here because I want to make sure I say this right, but learning that it's okay to be happy, even though it feels like a selfish thing sometimes, sometimes in my life, especially I feel like working a normal job, when you're, kind of at work with a lot of older people, some may be grumpy, some may be just in a bad time of their life going through things. And, sometimes it could feel like a guilty thing to feel good, to be happy. And, when people are around, when you're in a good mood and you're happy and you're excited about life and you're excited about things and you have people around you in your life that, kind of put you down for that or make it feel as though you can't be happy because other people around you aren't feeling that happiness. It's a trap, and it's something that I've been struggling with recently, because I am, for the most part, I am a pretty positive guy. I tend to constantly look at the positive side of things. I'm constantly trying to find an even balance between things, and for the most part, I try to look at the bright side. But in doing so, sometimes I feel guilty for that, and feel guilty because other people aren't feeling that or can't feel that right now in the season of their life that they're in. And so it makes me not let myself feel that happiness and that excitement for my life and what I got going on in this podcast and things in general. And it's I don't know, dealing with that and struggling with that has made me over the past couple weeks feel a little bit more bitter about life in general and kind of look at the opposite side of the spectrum and look at the bad parts of things. And it's something I've been working on and realizing it is an okay thing. It is an okay thing to be happy and to be happy for your life, even though things around it or people around it aren't in that same spot, right? And we can allow ourselves to kind of romanticize a little bit about our life and be excited about things and be happy about things. So that's something that I've been going through lately. And then also just kind of coming to a conclusion of where I've been at with life is I've been trusting God super heavily with my steps and where I'm going and with my career, and everything lately, because my path has felt pretty unclear. He's put me in this restful season, which I'm grateful and blessed for, but it also, kind of has made things unclear, not being called as much to make videos and, adding this into my schedule, and things of that nature, has made things a little bit, unclear. I'm lacking clarity. I don't know where things are headed. Things have slowed down. But I'm just kind of, like I said earlier, taking action, planting my feet, making the moves, and I trust that God is leading my feet in the right direction to where they need to go. If I'm doing the wrong thing, I trust that He's going to turn me the other way. If I'm doing the right thing, I trust that He's going to keep my feet going the right way. And it's a hard thing to do. I struggle with it sometimes, but I really, really do trust Him with all my heart that at the end of this, whatever it is, even if it was everything that I'm doing now stopped and it was completely different, I trust Him that that is the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just doing my due diligence to get up, take action, do what I feel is right. And if it's not, he's going to move me in a different direction. So yeah, that's that's kind of concludes where my life update has been recently. Severely trusting God, struggling with some things, restful season, unclear, but I know he's got me, and I know things are going to clear up on the other end of this. So yeah, that's my little life update and where I've been recently. And then, just kind of wanting to express myself a little bit more creatively. That's kind of why I thought of this podcast idea. And kind of wanting, like I talked about earlier, kind of wanting to get back into music and making music, not as a full-time thing, not switching up anything I'm doing now, just doing it more as a hobby and doing more things that aren't constantly kind of considered work in my brain. And giving myself that opportunity to be excited and go do something that's a hobby, that's fun, that has no other regard. It's just me and the microphone making music. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And just having fun. You know what I mean? Kind of getting in contact with my creative side that I get excited for, and creating things again has been another part of where I'm at in my life. But yeah, other than that, I think that's just going to about do it for this podcast. I had a wonderful time filming this. This has been fun. It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be once I started to get rambling. I'm sure if I didn't have topics or something specific to talk about, I would probably be yapping about everything and anything. So thank you guys. Much appreciated for all of your questions. Like I said, I'm sorry if I didn't get to some of them. There will be more opportunities for me to answer your questions in future podcasts. But yeah, successful one. And other than that, I think I'm going to pray us out of this one and then say our goodbyes. That is going to wrap up this podcast. If you're about to leave, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you want, but it is appreciated, but it's not mandatory. And yeah, I'm just going to say a quick prayer to lead us out of this, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Dear Lord, I want to thank you so much for the people on the other end of the screen. I want to thank you so much for waking us up with breath in our lungs, with the ability to wake up and have another day, to receive another day, to figure it out again, a clean slate. And we want to thank you for your never-ending love and grace and mercy that you have on us to, give us that opportunity, to try again and to try again and to try again. And we apologize for the distance that we might have had to you over the last little bit. And we want to thank you for never leaving our side and standing exactly where we left you, and allowing us to come back. I also want to pray for anybody who's dealing with any type of hardship season or maybe struggling with sin, and I pray that you can be on their behalf and fight on their behalf and allow them to know that they are not alone and that they can do this and are doing this with you, and it is not up to their strength but to yours, and they can lean on you and rely on you to help them get through whatever they are going through. Jesus, I just ask that you stay by our side, you hold our hand, you never let us run away, and you keep us close and protect us, protect our families, keep us in good health, and continue to guide us and be that never-ending loving figure that you are. We love you so much. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much for watching this first episode of Since We Last Talked. Can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. Probably going to be doing these twice a month. And yeah, that's just going to wrap it up. God loves you. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.